Hello and welcome. This is the first of 3 online modules to onboard you to the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. This module is meant for teachers and leaders in schools, districts, and charters who will be piloting in the 2021-2022 school year. This module is designed as an introduction to the system and to help orient you to the pilot. You may know some of this information already if you have participated in information sessions or webinars in your district or school. The goals of this module are to help you understand the history, theory of action, and guiding principles behind the creation of the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System, and to know the goals and timeline for the pilot and your role in the pilot. This module will not cover details of the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. There are 2 additional pre-recorded modules that will cover a deep dive into the observation framework and a deep dive into the observation and evaluation process. Before we begin, let's hear from the Secretary of Education.
Hello, I'm Susan Bunting, Delaware's Secretary of Education. I am proud to introduce you to the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. At the department, we deeply value our teachers, and we know that meeting our vision of having every learner ready for success in college, career, and life would not be possible without our having excellent teachers throughout the state. The Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System will offer all teachers the focused, actionable feedback that they need to ensure that they are teaching at their best and thus providing our students with the highest quality learning experience. On behalf of the state's 138,000 students and your instructional peers, I would like to express our deepest gratitude for your engaging in the pilot of this new program. Your participation and candid feedback will help us ensure that the system we implement for all teachers will indeed support them and facilitate their growth. We invite you to be honest with us about your experiences so that we can guarantee that the full implementation of the system supports all teachers and ultimately all students in Delaware. I sincerely thank you for all that you do each day for our students and reiterate our gratitude for your contributions to the new Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System.
As Dr. Bunting mentioned, our vision as educators in Delaware is to ensure that every learner is ready for success in college, career, and life. This vision drives what we do every day. However, we know that we are not yet adequately preparing all students for college. In Delaware, 41% of high school graduates entering a Delaware college from the class of 2015 required some form of remediation in college. We also know that students are not yet all demonstrating proficiency according to NAEP. As most recently as 2019, less than 40% of 4th graders and less than 40% of 8th graders are demonstrating proficiency in reading and math. We know that teachers matter more to student achievement than any other in-school factor. Several studies have shown that teacher quality matters more than anything else in a child's learning. In fact, teachers performing in the top 20% of performance can generate up to 5 to 6 more months of student learning each year than lower performing teachers. We know and deeply believe that teachers matter. We know that not all students are yet meeting rigorous standards, and that every child in Delaware deserves an effective teacher. Teachers work hard every day and deserve support, and supporting teachers' ongoing growth and development will ensure greater teacher effectiveness. We know that specific, actionable feedback for teachers is the best way that we can develop teacher skill and increase effectiveness for students. Systems to support growth and development are central to providing specific, actionable feedback for teachers. Much has changed since DPAS 2 was originally implemented in Delaware. Common Core standards have raised expectations for learning for children. The in-task standards, adopted by the Department of Education, clarified expectations for teachers. And teachers across Delaware tell us that they want an evaluation system that better supports their growth and development. An excellent evaluation system provides teachers feedback based on a shared belief in what has the greatest impact on learning, supports teachers with a continuous cycle of professional growth based on that feedback and shared belief, and ultimately ensures each student has an effective teacher. The DPAS-2 evaluation system was implemented with a teaching focus. In a teaching focus system, the focus is on the teacher. This means that the system prompts the evaluator to examine what the teacher does and compare that to a set of teaching standards. It typically is comprised of a few observations per year, maybe one, two, or three, depending on the teacher's experience. And observations are rated each time because the focus of the system is on the teacher's performance. Conferences serve the purpose to review the observation and to sign off on ratings and reports. Sometimes conferences include recommendations of the things the teacher should do to get better in alignment with teaching standards. There is nothing inherently wrong with the teaching focus system, but there is a glaring omission in focus from this list. What is it? It's students. So, in Delaware, we are striving to create a system that is learning focused. A learning focused system prompts the observer to examine what the teacher does and the impact of the teacher's actions on students, rather than just comparing the teacher's actions to a list of inputs. This means that instead of one or two observations, the teacher has frequent, shorter observations throughout the year, so that the teacher and observer can see the impact of teaching on students over time. Conferences are not focused on ratings, and instead focus on the impact the teacher had on students in the lesson, and result in goal setting in terms of students. In a learning-focused system, everything is focused on the teacher growing and improving in order to better serve students and ensure that students ultimately are learning. So, while the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System will include ratings at the end of the year, the focus of the system is on learning and development of the teacher, so students will get the excellent instruction they deserve. The development of the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System was driven by several core beliefs. First, a focus on both student outcomes and teacher inputs will drive success for students and teachers. Both how teachers set goals and how they are supported to achieve those goals should be differentiated. Ongoing observation and feedback will help teachers develop their skills more quickly and effectively. And the evaluation should be a holistic, comprehensive assessment of a teacher's practice over the course of the year. The in-person conference is a key lever for teacher growth, and simplifying the process will make it a better use of leader and teacher time. The following theory of action drove the development of the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. Because, despite efforts by teachers across the state, Delaware students are not yet meeting expectations or are fully prepared for college and career. And because teachers are the #1 most influential in-school factor in whether a student is successful, our theory is that if teachers and leaders across the state have a shared expectation for what great teaching and learning looks like and sounds like, and teachers are supported to improve their practice and meet those expectations for what great teaching is, then student learning and success will increase. So, teachers need a teacher framework and system that articulates expectations for students and skills and development strategies for teachers to meet those expectations. The Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System design was driven by a steering committee of educators. Let's hear from one member of the steering committee now.
Hello, my name is Dan Bruno, and I have been a secondary English language arts educator for over 15 years, the most recent 3 years being here in the state of Delaware. It is my pleasure to speak to you today on behalf of the Department of Education's Teacher Evaluation Redesign Steering Committee. The steering committee began work on redesigning the teacher evaluation process in 2018, regularly meeting since its inception to help guide this process. The steering committee is composed of a variety of educators and instructional leaders, teachers, school administrators, human resources administrators, curriculum and academic leaders, superintendents, and partners in higher education from across the state. These members drove every part of the design of the new system, from reviewing resources and exemplar rubrics to deciding language to be included in the rubric and testing these rubrics in classrooms. Members of the steering committee even drove the creation of this process, providing feedback that helped shape these training sessions. These same members are now engaged in the work of advising districts that will participate in the pilot program, including the creation of tools and resources pilot participants will implement. Being on the steering committee has made me continue to evaluate my craft in the light of the evidence that my students are learning what I intend for them to learn. If the learning is visible to my students, then it is easier for them to know what they have learned and how to use it. This evaluation system will allow for real conversations about practice, centered on student learning, to take place over the course of the year, resulting in more conscious, targeted efforts to make students' learning visible, concrete, and constructive.
The steering committee created this new system following this timeline. The committee began in the 2018 school year with the design of the observation framework. In the 2019-2020 school year, the committee tested and finalized that framework and designed the evaluation process. This past school year has been a transition year as we prepare for the pilot, which will begin in your school this fall for the 2021-2022 school year. This is in preparation for full implementation in all schools in Delaware beginning in the fall of 2022. Let's walk through these past few years to understand the development of the new system. The steering committee began by designing the observation framework. Over the course of the 18-19 school year, the committee examined a number of different tools and resources in the design of the new observation framework. These tools included the in-task standards, which Delaware recently adopted. The in-task standards describe what great teachers know and do to achieve outcomes for students. They serve as the baseline of professional expectations for teachers in Delaware. Second, the committee examined the instructional shifts required by the Common Core. The Common Core standards raises expectations for kids and, as a result, requires teachers to change how they teach to ensure students meet those expectations. We examine tools that articulate the Common Core shifts and what they look like in the classroom. The committee studied a report called the Opportunity Myth that details what students are and are not getting in education and support in schools, and identified what will be important to ensure that all Delaware teachers know and are able to do. The committee also examined several exemplar observation rubrics to identify and understand different features and structures, and borrowed many ideas from other tools currently in use. Finally, and most importantly, the steering committee reflected on teacher feedback, both feedback collected annually across the state on DPAS-2 and on feedback from specific members of the steering committee themselves. There are many, many other resources that the steering committee used to create the observation framework. Just a few of them are listed on the screen. Once the steering committee drafted the observation framework, they spent the 2019-2020 school year systematically testing the framework in almost 150 classrooms across the state. Let's hear from another steering committee member about this testing process.
Hi, my name is Lynn Streets, and I'm an assistant principal at Appoquinimink High School. This is my 17th year in education in the state of Delaware. I spent 9 years in the classroom in the Christina School District, and I'm now in my 8th year as an administrator in the Appoquinimink School District. I'm proud of the work that the steering committee has done, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. This group of educators has worked really hard to make sure that this tool is not just a measure of compliance, rather it is a measure of growth. In order to make sure it was successful, we tested it in more than 150 classrooms in Delaware. We made sure to observe all subjects, all grades, pre-K to 12, and we shared our strengths, our weaknesses, and what we found within our observations, and spoke about the grades or the areas we struggled the most before we made those changes. As a special educator, I was mostly concerned about its ability to transcend context as well as grades. So I'm proud of the fact that we tested this tool in every setting as well. Self-contained classrooms, ELL, co-teach classrooms, as well as honors and AP were all used. And after each round of testing, we came back to the table to refine both the language and the process. I'm proud of this tool, proud of the work that the committee put in. Throughout the testing, I learned that we can evaluate educators in a system which promotes growth and not compliance. We don't have to simply check boxes. We can have conversations, give feedback that really matters. And at the end of the day, all that really matters are student outcomes. And we truly believe that this tool can increase the amount of positive student outcomes.
As Lynn mentioned, the steering committee tested the observation framework in over 150 classrooms across the state. These classrooms included all subjects: ELA, math, art, PE, music, and others. Testing also included all grade levels, from pre-K through 12. And testing included a variety of contexts, including special education, general education, English language learners, and honors classes. The steering committee identified several key headlines that drove the design of the observation process. First, the committee noted that one 20-minute observation did not provide enough time to capture adequate evidence to assign ratings. Testers also noticed that the part of the lesson that was observed impacted whether the observer found it easy to find evidence on the different parts of the framework. And conferencing with the teacher after the observation and reviewing artifacts about the teaching were very helpful in tagging and aligning evidence. This testing informed the process design, as did research and best practice from across the country. The steering committee created the process considering lessons learned from testing, feedback from educators across the state, and research. On the screen now is a list of resources that were used for the design of the observation process. As a result, the steering committee created the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. We will walk through a high level of this growth and support system now. Remember, you will get more detail in subsequent asynchronous modules. Most teachers and leaders are familiar with the D-PAS-2 teacher observation rubric and system. Consider that system like a tortoise, and the new system like a turtle. The two animals look similar and have many of the same features. However, there are some important distinctions between the two animals that make them different. This is much like the comparison between D-PAS-2 and the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. First, the new system is focused on impact. The framework is outcome focused, which means it examines what students do and say as a result of what the teacher has done. The language of the new framework prompts observers to assess instruction based both on what teachers are doing and on what students are doing. Second, the new system is streamlined. The framework has 9 indicators and is designed to be less cumbersome to implement than other rubrics. The process is focused on steps that have been shown to directly support teacher growth and development versus result in compliance-driven paperwork. The new system is objective. The framework virtually eliminates the use of quantifying language like some, most, and all. This type of language can be unclear and not specific for educators. The process provides many opportunities for administrators to view teaching and to build a complete picture of a teacher's strengths and growth areas over the course of the year. Finally, The new system prioritizes and focuses on what happens in the classroom. The framework only includes behaviors and actions that can directly be observed in a lesson. This means that elements of professionalism and planning are not explicitly included in the framework indicators. What matters most in this system is what teachers do for kids and what results in classrooms. Let's take a quick tour of the framework. If you've not already done so, pause the video now and download the framework from the Schoology site. The framework begins on the second page of the document you downloaded, with the first of 3 performance areas. Each performance area is accompanied by an essential question. Essential questions guide and summarize what is being assessed in the performance area. Each performance area also has 4 levels of performance, starting with level 1 on the left to level 4 on the right. Each performance area also has 3 indicators, for a total of 9 across the framework. And each indicator has descriptors that describe that indicator at each of the levels of performance. Each performance area is also accompanied by a set of core teacher skills. Core teacher skills are not rated. Instead, they are used to provide common language for coaching and development. Core teacher skills are a list of things that great teachers do to get the outcomes articulated in the descriptors in each performance area. So what does the process look like? The Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System process is anchored by 3 conferences: a fall conference, a mid-year conference, and a spring conference. Throughout the year, these conferences are supported by ongoing observation and feedback. Here is another high-level overview of the process. The fall conference begins with the creation of a professional growth plan that includes professional goals and student improvement goals. There are multiple shorter observations that are not rated individually. There's a mid-year conference, which is the chance to review progress and revise the professional growth plan if necessary, and a spring conference, which includes the final rating at the end of the year. All teachers will receive multiple short observations throughout the year. Again, individual observations are not rated. Instead, they provide a chance for the administrator to capture evidence of teacher practice over time, to get a complete picture of the teacher's performance, and to collect evidence to inform ongoing feedback and support. Let's hear from another member of the steering committee about the attempt to simplify the system.
Hi, I'm Clara Kahn, principal of Low Neck Elementary School in the Annie Brewer School District. I have 18 years of education in the state of Delaware, with the last 8 of them have been in administration. For the past year and a half, I have been a part of the Department of Education Teacher Evaluation Steering Committee, and today I'm honored to speak about the process and the new system that is coming to the state of Delaware. The Delaware Educator Growth and Support System process has been designed to be simpler than DPAS-2 and other evaluation processes used in the state of Delaware. Simpler does not mean take necessarily less time for administrators. Instead, simpler means it's a better use of time. Instead of spending time writing long, dense narratives after an observation, administrators will focus on actively supporting teachers and coaching teachers. The process moves away from the completion of forms purely for compliance purposes, and it provides more structure for observing teaching and learning and talking about the teaching with the teachers. The process allows a focus on growth and development for teachers rather than a focus on rating and compliance for administrators. I'm excited about this move to a simpler, more developed process focused for teachers. All the time is limited and is precious. So being able to use that time in a way that will be more immediate and direct benefit for teachers will result in a better support for our students. So I am excited about the new process coming to Delaware.
As Clara mentioned, the new system was designed to be simplified. And simplification does not mean that it will take less time to implement. Instead, it means that the time used will be better used in service of teacher development and growth. And so this means moving away from compliance-focused forms and activities and toward more simple forms and focused discussions to drive teacher development. The new evaluation system, the implementation of a new evaluation system really requires us all to think a little differently and to undo sort of common patterns we have in our own minds. And so we're going to view now a video about a backwards bicycle and then share some takeaways that align to our efforts together to implement the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System.
Hey, it's me, Destin. Welcome back to Smarter Every Day. You've heard people say it's just like riding a bike, meaning it's really easy and you can't forget how to do it, right? But I did something. I did something that damaged my mind. It happened on the streets of Amsterdam, and I got really scared, honestly. I can't ride a bike like you can anymore. Before I show you the video of what happened, I need to tell you the backstory. Like many 6-year-olds with a MacGyver mullet, I learned how to ride a bike when I was really young. I had learned a life skill and I was really proud of it. Everything changed though when my friend Barney called me 25 years later. Where I work, the welders are geniuses and they like to play jokes on the engineers. He had a challenge for me. He had built a special bicycle and he wanted me to try to ride it. He had only changed one thing. When you turn the handlebar to the left, the wheel goes to the right. When you turn it to the right, the wheel goes to the left. I thought this would be easy, so I hopped on the bike ready to demonstrate how quickly I could conquer this.
And here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Destin Sandlin. First attempt riding the bicycle.
All right. So the faster I go, the better.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. You can see that I'm laughing, but I'm actually really frustrated. In this moment, I had a really deep revelation. My thinking was in a rut. This bike revealed a very deep truth to me. I had the knowledge of how to operate the bike, but I did not have the understanding. Therefore, knowledge is not understanding. Look, I know what you're probably thinking. Destin's probably just an uncoordinated engineer and can't do it. But that's not the case at all. The algorithm that's associated with riding a bike in your brain is just that complicated. Think about it. Downwards force on the pedals, leaning your whole body, pulling and pushing the handlebars, gyroscopic precession in the wheels. Every single force is part of this algorithm. And if you change any one part, it affects the entire control system. I do not make definitive statements that often, but I'm telling you right now, you cannot ride this bicycle. You might think you can, but you can't. I know this because I'm often asked to speak at universities and conferences and I take the bike with me. It's always the same. People think they're going to try some trick or they're just going to power through it. It doesn't work. Your brain cannot handle this. For instance, this guy, I offered him $200 just to ride this bike 10 feet across the stage. Everybody thought he could do it.
No, you didn't understand. You didn't understand. So, this way. Okay. All right, just a second. All right, so, whenever you're ready. Wait, good. No, you have to keep your feet on. Dude, look. All right, here we go. Wait. Like, you gotta start rolling at least. Good. And go. Okay. Keep your feet on the pedal. Go. Go right up. Just keep your feet on the pedals. Hands on. Yeah, come on. All right, one more time. Okay.
Once you have a rigid way of thinking in your head, sometimes you cannot change that, even if you want to. So here's what I did. It was a personal challenge. I stayed out here in this driveway and I practiced about 5 minutes every day. My neighbors made fun of me. I had many wrecks, but after 8 months, this happened. One day I couldn't ride the bike, and the next day I could. It was like I could feel some kind of pathway in my brain that was now unlocked. It was really weird though. It's like there's this trail in my brain, but if I wasn't paying close enough attention to it, my brain would easily lose that neural path and jump back onto the old road it was more familiar with. Any small distractions at all, like a cell phone ringing in my pocket, would instantly throw my brain back to the old control algorithm and I would wreck. But at least I could ride it. My son is the closest person to me genetically, and he's been riding a normal bike for 3 years. That's over half his life. I wanted to know how long it would take him to learn how to ride a backwards bike, so I told him if he learned how to ride a backwards bike, he could go with me to Australia and meet a real astronaut. Are you gonna give up?
No.
Go ahead. This is how it starts. Look at this. This is such a big deal. Get up, you got it. Did you see his brain get it? So in how many weeks have we been doing this? 2 weeks? In 2 weeks, he did something that took me 8 months to do, which demonstrates that a child has more neuroplasticity, am I even saying that right, than an adult. It's clear from this experiment that children have a much more plastic brain than adults. That's why the best time to learn a language is when you're a young child. All right, today's bike log. I can ride smooth, I can ride fast. I'm thinking the experiment is over. Okay, now I'm in Amsterdam, a city that has more bicycles than people. The question is, can I ride a normal bike now? I mean, I've spent all this time unlearning how to ride a bike. If I go back and try to ride a normal one, will my brain mess up? So I've tweeted a Smarter Everyday meetup, if you will, and I'm gonna see if somebody brings a bicycle and I'm gonna try to ride a normal bike. It's backwards, it's backwards. This was one of the most frustrating moments of my life. I had ridden a normal bike since I was 6, but in this moment, I couldn't do it anymore. I had set out to prove that I could free my brain from a cognitive bias. But at this point, I'm pretty sure that all I proved is that I can only redesignate that bias. So what you're not seeing is just a group of people here looking at me, looking at the strange American that can't ride a bike because they think I'm dumb. But I'm actually 2 levels deep into this because I've learned and unlearned. All right. After 20 minutes of making a fool out of myself, suddenly my brain clicked back into the old algorithm. I can't explain it, but it happened in a very specific moment. I got it. I'm back. Oh, it clicked. Hold it, it clicked. I got it. Okay, there it is. There was the moment. Okay, I can ride a bike. I tried to explain this to the people around me, and they just didn't get it. They thought I was faking the previous 20 minutes, and I couldn't get anybody to believe me. That looked like I faked that, didn't it? Yeah. Just a fake. You think I'm faking. You don't believe me.
That looks so weird. You were like, la, 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 and it's fun.
You think I'm lying, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
I'm not lying. I felt like the only person on the planet who had ever unlearned how to ride a bike, and I couldn't articulate it to anyone because everybody just knew that you can't forget how to ride a bike. So I learned 3 things from this experiment. I learned that welders are often smarter than engineers. I learned that knowledge does not equal understanding. And I learned that truth is truth, no matter what I think about it. So be very careful how you interpret things because you're looking at the world with a bias, whether you think you are or not. I'm Destin. You're getting smarter every day. Have a good one.
So a few takeaways from this video and how it aligns to our efforts together to implement the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. Initially, there is a knowledge gap, and these asynchronous sessions are designed to fill that knowledge gap about the system and the approach. However, just knowing about the system doesn't necessarily equal understanding and sort of proficiency at the system. And so the job of the Department of Education is to really grow and offer differentiated supports for all educators, because it's going to take time and effort for all of us to grow an understanding of how to implement this new approach. Just like with changing our behavior, riding a bike backwards is still hard, even though we know how to do it. And that same will be true as we change how we approach teacher support and coaching through the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. Even though we may be motivated to implement these changes, change is always hard. Deeply ingrained patterns of thinking, behavior, and process underlie how we support teacher growth and how we implement evaluation system. And the work starts today with your learning through these modules, but will extend long beyond this day as we really ensure that we are implementing a system with a focus on teacher growth and on student growth. And ultimately, our goal is to kind of redesignate our cognitive bias toward growth and development and away from accountability and compliance. It took our host of that video 8 months to unlock the pathway in his brain to be able to ride a backwards bike. So we know it's going to take us time to get out of our old habits and methods of evaluation and accountability and toward growth and development. So our goal is to really redesignate that bias and support you to do that in your work. So now, we've spent the last several years redesigning this new system, and that brings us to this upcoming school year, which is the opportunity to pilot the system that you and your school and district are a part of. We have several goals for the pilot, which is ultimately our chance to test this new system as designed. First, we're going to fully implement the new framework and process to identify any final changes before the system is implemented for stakes statewide. Second, we will assess the extent to which the redesigned framework and process accomplish those goals and theory of action that we set out for this work in the very beginning. We'll also identify and really be prepared to mitigate any unintended consequences or challenges and implement full training and support to inform the rollout for all administrators and teachers across the state in the fall of 2022. And finally, identify any additional resources or training that will be necessary to ensure successful statewide implementation. So the pilot this year will include full use of the full observation framework for teachers, the full process implementation, comprehensive training, which starts today with your participation in this module, and data collection by the Department of Education to assess those pilot goals. Importantly, this pilot means that DPAS-2 for teachers or your other current evaluation system, if you're on an alternative system, will not be in place in your district or school this year. This also means that this system is only for teachers, so specialists and leaders will still be on the current DPAS-2 system. All teachers in your school and district will move to the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System. So what specifically can you expect? So teachers, again, these training starts with these online onboarding modules that you're participating in. You'll also receive in-person onboarding with your administrator this fall, and you'll have the option to attend additional deep dive trainings. You'll also, from your administrator, receive coaching and support to help meet your goals for students. This pilot year is considered a hold harmless year for teachers. So teacher final ratings on the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System will not come with consequences because we really want to test and make sure this system works. School leaders and administrators will also participate in online onboarding modules, and you will also receive online and in-person really deep training with our partner Research for Better Teaching, and that training will begin this spring. You'll also receive additional coaching and training from RBT on site in your building in the fall. And finally, a system that better uses your time to support your teachers' growth and development. As for the timeline, training and onboarding begins now this spring with your participation in this module. September will be when you will participate in goal setting and fall conferences. Observations can begin as soon as the fall conference is complete. Observations will continue through the fall, and mid-year conferences can begin as soon as December or when 2 observations are complete. Mid-year conferences should really be finished by end of January so that observations can continue in the late winter and early spring. All summative evaluations and spring evaluation conferences should be complete by May of 2022. Your district will share more specifics on timeline and date requirements for your school and district. Your voice matters. By being in a pilot district or school, you get the chance to shape how the final Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System looks and feels to teachers and leaders. So throughout the year, you will have the opportunity to share your feedback with the Department of Education and the steering committee. That includes participating in surveys, interviews, focus groups, feedback forms, and school visits with the Department of Education. We want to know about how the new system is working. So we will ask for your feedback on the process and on the observation framework, as well as your feedback on the resources and training that we're providing to you. The Department of Education is piloting this system because your input and feedback matters, and what you share with us will drive what the final system looks like when it's implemented fully in the fall of 2022. So you probably have a lot of questions that have come up over the course of this first module. We encourage you to stop and write down any questions that you have. Then continue on to the second training module, which will provide you a deep dive into the Delaware Teacher Growth and Support System Observation Framework. After that, you'll complete the third module, which will provide provide a deep dive into the process. So congratulations, you have finished module 1 of your online training. In order for you to be considered complete, having completed this module, you need to complete the exit ticket for module 1. This survey will ask you questions about what you learned and ask you for feedback so we can focus future trainings in areas that you need support. You can find a link to this exit ticket on the Schoology site. There you can also find information about modules 2 and 3. So thank you for your time today. We look forward to hearing from you.